welcome to another episode of the Incoming Video Podcast, the show that takes a look back at my favourite historical miniature releases of the last 7 days. This is episode 17, which takes a look back at the releases for week ending the 11th of September 2009. And as always, I'm your host, Neil Shuck. Bit of a busier week for you this week, and so I do have a top 10. Starting off at number 10, we have another new company to me, anyway, and that's Fire and Sword Miniatures. Now, these guys are from Poland, and one of the ranges they're currently doing is Great North War, and these are Swedish Dragoons. I think they've got some interesting looking figures here, though apparently they're having tremendous problems actually casting them at the moment. But it's nice to see, again, a set of figures that are following more in the kind of realistic proportion mould as opposed to the heroic 28mm that we've been kind of used to seeing more recently. Number 9 this week, we have the first of a couple of vehicles. This is a new 28mm Humvee from Fenris, one of those sort of vehicles that's much in demand if you're doing modern gaming. Very workmanlike sculpt, I think. Everything seems clear and in its proper place. It's always good to have resin Humvees around. Number 8, I'm featuring a few models which I believe I kind of featured in passing a few weeks ago. These are now officially released, and these are models from the 148 Combat game. And they are 148 scale, or 36mm. Although, I have heard some rumours that they're actually a bit smaller than that, and they're almost like giant 28s. Probably nearer 32mm than 36. So, I'd really like to get my hands on some to actually kind of see how big they are in real life. Now, they've released 12 miniatures this week. These, I think, are probably the best of the bunch. What you see here is a Russian sniper, a German officer, and then both German and Russian light machine gunners. Given the scale they're working in, I'm a little bit disappointed by these, to be honest. And the sniper looks nice, but the other figures, again, 148 scale is really good for working in more realistic proportions, and these definitely look more 28mm sort of proportion. So I'm somewhat disappointed, and as I say, I think I'll hold final judgment on these until I see them in the metal. And I'll have more to say about these when I review the game in an upcoming podcast. And on to Olbern Miniatures, complete changing period. These are back to Napoleonics. Changing scale as well, these are down to 28, but they're much more realistically scaled 28mm figures. And these, I believe, are new sculpts of Sharp and Harper, or at least British Rifle characters. If you remember, there was a limited edition set of Sharp and Harper figures produced for the release of Sharp Skirmish by Olbern. Again, I think these are still sculpted by Richard Ansell, and I think what he's done is that the limited edition figures were much more based on the TV series, whereas these appear to be a little bit more based on the book. A very nice looking set of command figures here from Olbern. Well worth getting hold of, I think. To number 6, and a new release from Warlord in their Bolt Action Miniatures range. This is a new German checkpoint. Always a useful bit of kit to have on your World War II War Games table, and plus it includes a couple of nice looking Sentry figures. So a nice little vignette. Into the top 5, and we have my second vehicle of this week. This is a new model from Imprint Models, who have been a bit quiet for a while. But Imprint are known for producing really nice 150th scale modern vehicles. This is their new T-72. This is a late version of the T-72, so it's the sort of tank that you'd find in the first Gulf War. I'm a bit of a treadhead at heart, so it's always nice to see new modern tanks coming out. As I say, this is a really nice model. Number 4, and a release that has been talked about for several weeks, so it seems like they've already been out. But finally they're released this week. That's the new Roman Auxiliary plastic set from Warlord Games. And this very much complements their previous early Imperial Rome Legionaries, and they look nice enough. The detailing looks good, and the chainmail especially looks to work quite nicely, which is something I know several plastic figures suffer from. I do have a couple of concerns about these though, one of which is the ranking, which is a problem I know the early Imperial Rome Legionnaires set suffered from. In that particular set, once you'd assembled the figures, it was actually very difficult to get the figures into a coherent rank. These appear to be the same, especially since a lot of the figures are actually sculpted thrusting with swords or thrusting with spears. So it'll be interesting to see how these work out practically. I know one of the major problems with the original Legionnaires box set was actually the shields, not the swords. And certainly the shields in this particular set seem to be in a better position. but I still have some concerns, I must admit. However, the good news is I do actually have a box set of these to review, so look out for a detailed review of this box set in future. Number 3, we have some new sculpts from the Perrys. These are for their Carlist War range. I've released a couple of packs, and this is my favourite one, which is the British Auxiliary Legion. Anyway, this is their command pack. They released the greens of this week, and these look suitably impressive. We almost seem to get blasé about the Perrys' work. They have set such a high standard in sculpting that, you know, you look at it and sometimes you can't, yeah, that looks pretty good. And you really don't notice just how good and how detailed these things are. So more excellent packs from the Perry twins. On to number 2, and it's Empress miniatures. And these were released at the very end of last week, so they just missed last week's show. But these are a couple of new releases for their Zulu Wars range. We have a couple of new packs, one of which is featured here, of British troops firing line. And then we have a pack of Zulus equipped with Martin Henry rifles. Empress have been consistently good, especially with the British infantry. I really do like those models. Great anatomy, especially great faces as well. Really nice stuff from them. And this week's number 1, it's back to Eureka. 2 weeks running they top the charts here. And the new release this week are from their Wars of the French Revolution. A couple of pictures here featuring their latest releases, which are Hungarians and Austrians. Again this week, the thing that really appeals to me is just the anatomy of the figure, very clean detail, and a good range of poses. And you say, you know, you see them painted up to this sort of display standard, and they just look stunning. They really do. I know painting really does help, but the figures really have to be good for you to see a picture and immediately go, wow, you know, that is a period from looking at that particular picture. I would love to collect those figures. And for me this week, these figures in particular have that wow factor, and that's why they're my number 1. Well, that's all we have time for this week. But before I go, I just need to make one correction. Last week, I featured a couple of vignettes, one of the Black Prince and King John, and one of Spartacus, and I incorrectly attributed these to being Wargames Foundry. They're not. They're actually produced and available from Warhammer Historical. So I just want to be clear. Apologies for getting that wrong, and many thanks to Mike for pointing that out to me. So many apologies to Warhammer Historical for that little slip up. Okay, well, that's all we have time for this week. I hope you've seen something you found interesting. I look forward to joining you again in a week's time. Until then, happy gaming, take care, I'll see you soon. Bye.